I shouldn't feel like this. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard women say this to me, or the number of times I've said it to myself in the past. Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Unburdened Woman. And today we're talking about gaslighting ourselves. We're all familiar, or most of us will be familiar with the term gaslighting. It's where you're told something's true when it's not. And unfortunately, those of us who are people pleasers, who have grown up and been conditioned to give to everybody before ourselves, we're brilliant at gaslighting ourselves, at telling ourselves how we should and should not feel, how we should and should not behave, what we should do and what we shouldn't do, how we need to put everybody else's needs and wants before our own. We want to be liked. We don't want to disappoint anybody. So we say yes when we mean no. And we forget that we can say no. And then, when we've said way too many yeses, and we feel overburdened and overwhelmed, we also start to feel anxious and resentful and wonder why we have no time for ourselves, why the things we want to do always seem to get put on the back burner. And then we question ourselves and we ask ourselves why we feel like this. And what's even worse, we tell ourselves we shouldn't feel like this. No, I shouldn't feel like this. I did it for many years. And I allowed other people to tell me how I should and should not feel. If I looked around me, I had everything in theory that I could ever possibly want. Things that other women craved in their lives. I had beautiful, wonderful, well-behaved children. I had a house with a car on the driveway. I had my own driveway. I had a husband. I had 2 cats. And lots of other small pets, rabbits, hamsters, you name it, we had it. We got to have our annual holiday, sometimes abroad, not always. The kids went to dancing classes, football clubs. You know, we had enough money for them to do that. We didn't have money for huge extravagances and luxuries, but we were doing okay. So I was told to look around you, to look at what you have, to feel grateful for everything that I have created in my life that I had. That I shouldn't be feeling dissatisfied. That I shouldn't be feeling resentful or upset or angry. That none of the things I wanted to do or wanted to achieve in my life were coming to fruition. None of my dreams were coming true. We weren't going on holidays to places that I wanted to go to. We weren't spending money on things that I wanted. Why? Because I'd allowed myself to be put into that situation where I ignored my needs. I said yes to everybody else because I was scared of disappointing them, of upsetting them. Maybe even fearful of being disliked or not loved. So even when I meant no, I said yes. Even when I desperately wanted to go somewhere and other options were put on the table, and might be having a family discussion as to where, we might go out for a day trip on a Sunday or during the holidays. And I wouldn't pipe up. I wouldn't say where I wanted to go. Because I kind of felt like it didn't matter. Or I thought that if we choose where I want to go, then nobody else gets to go where they want to go. And so, as life went on, and I lost myself and my needs and my wants to what everybody else wanted and needed, I became angry and resentful. And at first I couldn't work out where that anger and that resentment was coming from. But it was because I wasn't doing the things that I needed to have in my life to nourish me. But I looked around me and I looked at all that I did have. And I gaslighted myself. I told myself I shouldn't be feeling this way. And for a long time I believed myself. And I gaslit myself a little bit more. I told myself that I shouldn't even be thinking like this. Who was I to be complaining, to be moaning, when I had everything? Or at least if not everything, I had more than so many other people. And then I realized that the only person I was harming with this was me. That every time I told myself I shouldn't feel something, I was denying my right to have feelings. And the more I denied my right to have feelings and denied my feelings, the worse that seemed to become. I had this well of rage inside me that I couldn't express. I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know how to let it out. I'd numbed myself, essentially. Told myself I shouldn't be feeling. I wouldn't let myself feel. And so everything became kind of miserable. I was looking at life through a murky, mucky sort of lens. I wasn't finding any pleasure in it because everything just seemed like a drag. And looking back, it was a drag because I wasn't doing anything for me, because that's what happens when you put yourself at the bottom of the pile, when you think you don't matter, when you think that your needs and your wants and your self-nourishment doesn't matter. And I'm here to tell you they do. And I'm here to tell you that there's no shouldn't feel like this. You feel how you feel. And we need to acknowledge our feelings and we need to process our feelings. Now, yoga is the thing that helped me. And it's not for everybody. There are all sorts of ways you can do this. But it's important that you stop shutting yourself. You stop telling yourself how you should and should not feel. And allow yourself to feel. That's what changed everything for me. When I realized that I was allowed to feel things, that we are humans and we have feelings. And by repressing my feelings, by gaslighting myself about my feelings, all I was doing was making everything so much worse. Our feelings are messengers. They tell us when something isn't quite right. or when something needs changing. They also tell us when things are going really well. And when we listen to those messages, we take a moment to tap in and to listen, to feel. Then we can see how we can move forward or what needs to change. And when I first started down this path of allowing myself to acknowledge my feelings and then to actually feel them, it was difficult. It was new. It was very strange. But I soon realized that actually feelings don't take that long to pass. When I actually sit with the feeling and allow it to bubble up and acknowledge it and sometimes name it, and sometimes I don't need to, I just need to know it's there and allow it. It passes pretty quickly. That's not always true. Sometimes it takes a little longer because you need to cry it out or walk it off. Some feelings take a little longer to process, and that's okay. But when we're not squashing them down, we're not gaslighting ourselves and shutting ourselves, life becomes so much lighter because we're not repressing those emotions. The other thing I was doing was because I wasn't allowing myself to feel, and I certainly wasn't processing those emotions. I felt horrible. And to get rid of that horribleness, I ate chocolate, mostly. And so when those feelings would arise, I would grab for chocolate because that gave some sort of temporary relief. But as time went on, I needed more and more chocolate before that relief kicked in. And you can imagine what that was doing to my body. And then the weight gain was adding more to it. And you get yourself trapped in a really vicious circle. All because somebody else told me at some point along the line that I shouldn't feel the way I was feeling. And I took that on board. And there are no shoulds when it comes to feelings. Nobody's living your life. Nobody's living in your body. Nobody has your experiences. So they have no right to tell you how you should feel. And actually, you have no right to be telling yourself how you should feel either. Because your feelings are responses to what is going on in your life. And those responses are immediate and often momentary. We never question ourselves when we feel happy or joyful or excited. But yet we tell ourselves we shouldn't feel the other feelings. How does that work? How do we get off on that one? Why are some feelings allowed and others not? That was a question I didn't pose for myself for a very long time. Because all feelings are valid. There are no shoulds or should nots when it comes to feelings. They're there for a reason. And only you know how you feel and why you feel that way.